There are so many literature-based curriculum options out there, but the approach is pretty different than what a lot of us think of when we think of learning, especially in our early days of homeschooling. In my early days, I was really drawn into the idea of it, but I was also really nervous that I could make it work for our homeschool and that it would work for my kiddos. For one thing, I don't enjoy reading out loud to my kiddos. Two, we try to keep our school days short, and so it seemed like it would be a lot more time intensive. And the transition from a mostly workbook-based curriculum to something completely else felt pretty overwhelming to me. In those early days of homeschooling for us, which was 15, almost 16 years ago, Sunlight was about the only company out there if you wanted a literature-based curriculum. And the cost of it then, or even still now, to me was a big deterrent. Now you have other companies like Oh Freedom and Torchlight and Guest Hollow that offer curriculum, literature-based curriculum that's just for one or two subjects. That was our gateway into literature-based curriculum, and it's been the sweet spot for our homeschool. Since we're using literature-based curriculum for only one or two subjects each year, I find it easier to keep up with, which is a major factor when I'm considering what curriculum is going to work for us. And since my kiddos are doing other things throughout the day, they don't feel like they're reading, or feel like they're doing nothing but reading. So whether you are choosing literature-based curriculum for your entire homeschool or for just one or two subjects, today I'm going to share a few tips that will help make the transition and keeping up with it work for your homeschool. Number one, start with a single subject. Programs like Bookshark and Sunlight are great in that you just make one decision and you're done. But it's expensive and it's overwhelming, and for me, it felt stifling. And did I mention expensive? So starting with just one or two subjects is a great option if you're feeling the same way. Trying one or two subjects is also a great way to try it out before you jump in and do it for your entire homeschool, because it's far better to have one subject not work for you than your entire homeschool. Tip number two, try audiobooks. Reading aloud isn't my favorite, as I've said, and try as I might, and oh, how I have tried, I just never learned to enjoy it. And before my kiddos were ready to tackle reading on their own, especially a big stack of books, this was one of my main reasons for avoiding it. And that's where audiobooks can come in. Maybe you have little ones and you don't enjoy reading, or you just want to supplement their reading. Or maybe you have kids old enough to get through that entire list, but you want to supplement their reading. Audiobooks are such an easy tool for this. I'm old enough that our homeschooling predates smartphones and easy streaming of audiobooks. And while I don't enjoy reading out loud, I've always enjoyed sharing audiobook stories together with my kiddos. And until the past year or so, we have had an audiobook going at almost all times since my 9th grader was in diapers. And those audiobooks we first shared, mostly they were in the car. And now a lot of us don't have CD players in our cars anymore. All you need is a phone or a tablet, maybe an aux cord depending on your system, and you're good to go. At home, your kiddo can listen while they are doing their playing Legos or doing their chores or eating lunch, or you can use them as a bedtime story. All of these ways to use audiobooks can really help ease the load on your homeschooling. Unless you think that audiobooks are some form of cheating, did you know that the part of your brain that lights up when you're physically reading a book also lights up when you are hearing a story through headphones or around a campfire or however else you're hearing them? Our brains respond to the stories, not the form that we're reading. Audiobooks are not cheating, and I will die on that hill. Number 3, pick and choose what you're going to do. Just because it's on the Almighty's schedule doesn't mean it has to go on your schedule. If you aren't enjoying a book, skip it. If you have a different book about ancient Egypt that you want to read, go for it. If you get so caught up on a topic or an author that you want to keep reading that for the next 2 weeks, do it. Several years ago, we were reading David Macaulay's amazing pyramid book. If you've never read it or read any books by him, put it on your list. My kiddos got so caught up in it that they wanted to read more by him. And so for the next couple of weeks, we read Toilet and Mosque and City and Cathedral, and we learned so much, not all around the time period we were studying, obviously, but we enjoyed it. And that's the beauty of homeschooling. Okay, number 4, let's talk about the physical tracking of all the books that we need and when. This is one of my biggest areas of struggle with life, but with books in this case. So number 1, on the spine of my books, I use my label maker and put down what weeks we're going to use it, at least what the schedule says, and what subject it's for if that's not obvious. Then when I'm glancing at my bookshelf, I can quickly spot what we need. Number 2, I have a Google spreadsheet that I use to track all the books we're going to need. And I put down, there's a column for the title, whether we own it or I need to get it, and whether it's a physical book, an ebook, or even an audiobook. I keep a printed version of it in my planner, and then of course have it on my computer as well. And then number 3, in my homeschool planner each week, I make a note of what books I'm going to need for the coming weeks. And then as I check them out or locate them, I can cross them off. And it's a bit redundant since I also have that Google spreadsheet, but it's what works to keep all of this manageable for our homeschool. And that's one of the secrets of our homeschool lives. Number 5, keep a balance to your reading, aka know your reading limits. If the next couple of weeks you have even more reading to do in history, for example, cut back on what you're doing in science or skip literature altogether. And in those years before I learned my limits, ever the optimist, I would schedule all these books for us. And some weeks we'd get through them, and in other weeks I would end up avoiding them because it felt like so much reading. And so the books would pile up and I would avoid it even more. Gradually, I learned my limits. Done is better than perfect, or as I like to say, imperfectly done is better than perfectly avoided. If you're a mom that can sit for hours and hours and read, fantastic. That's wonderful. But even if you aren't, literature-based curriculum can still work for you. And our last tip, keeping our budget in check. Whether you choose a complete curriculum like Bookshark, or you're going for a single subject, literature-based curriculum can add up quickly. Ben's physics next year has 30 books, roughly, scheduled. That's a lot. But you don't have to buy every book new, or even buy every book at all. Absolutely use your library system. My library system, and I know other libraries use this as well, I have the option to put a book on hold for a future date. I choose dates that are a week or 2 before I expect to use them so that they've got time to reach my branch. And I can always go back and edit the date if I need to, but it's done. And then the books have time to get to me. And now most curriculum companies have Facebook groups where you can buy and sell books. So now that it's summer and moms are cleaning out their homeschools, this is a great time to pick up books for the coming year. And don't forget that most literature-based curriculum is meant to be for a range of ages. So use that. And even if your kiddos are just outside of that range, it's going to be okay. I promise. Do it. one of the beauties of homeschooling in 2024, or whenever you're watching this, is that ability to buy used easily and check out ebooks and check out books from the library while you're at home in your comfy pajamas, etc. So if you've enjoyed this video and you want to find out even more ways to save money in your homeschool, click on the video on your screen, and I will see you over there.